As we've mentioned many times, you never quite know how a day out on the water is going to start, nor do you know how it's going to finish, just like this crew found out this past week. These images show the Guntersville Lake Hydrofest, and here we can see the Diggin' Deep racing team in their vessel, which is now upside down. The crew was out during one of the championship heats and wound up flipping the boat, but this image here shows you exactly what happens when something like this goes on. Here you can see the rescue boats and dive teams immediately get to the scene to try and make sure that both people who are in the vessel are okay. And then of course, they try and do everything they can to help evacuate everybody out of the boat. And here in a few minutes, as you'll see, as the teams are trying to interact with the crew, you're going to see both the driver and the throttle man pop out the bottom of the vessel okay. But just one of those wild and crazy things we're going to witness on this week's episode of Boating News of the Week. Our next story to make the boating news this week is going to bring us over to Fort Lauderdale, where this was the scene actually just a little over a week ago, where another vessel wound up catching on fire just off of Fort Lauderdale Beach early in the morning. Here we can see the vessel Magica going ablaze right in front of a heavily populated beach area. Many tourists were just waking up, starting their day, when all of a sudden they come out of their hotel rooms to see this massive vessel ablaze right on the beach. The only occupant on board the boat, as we saw in the beginning of this clip, actually jumped overboard and swam to shore. FWC has launched an investigation into this incident to try and figure out what exactly caused this vessel to go ablaze. Now, unfortunately, in this situation, this vessel, as we can see, is burning hot right here on the beach. Local law enforcement and local fire rescue teams do eventually arrive to the scene, but by the time they get there, this thing is pretty much burned all the way out. And by the time it's all done, there is nothing left of this but charred fiberglass. Our next story to make the boating news this week is going to take us up to New York, where this was the scene just this past weekend when a crew of 23 people were out enjoying a day of boating on board a 35-foot carver when all of a sudden an explosion happened, causing the vessel to catch on fire, leaving the passengers scrambling and jumping off the boat to try and escape the burning vessel. The incident occurred while several boats were rafted up off the coast of the Bronx near Hart Island, when all of a sudden a small explosion occurred on the vessel, which is still at this time undetermined what actually caused it, forcing all the passengers to wind up jumping off the boat and swimming to the nearby island. Fortunately, all the vessels that were rafted up to this boat were able to untie before the vessel became fully engulfed in flames, and all the passengers were able to evacuate the vessel and get to the nearby island or be rescued by Good Samaritans in the water nearby. At this time, the cause of the fire is under investigation and still undetermined at this point. But one thing that has been determined is, one, the captain of the vessel apparently had been drinking and was actually arrested for a BUI during this incident. Another thing that is being questioned by local authorities is going to be passenger safety. A 35-foot carver is likely a yacht-rated vessel, but still, the amount of people they had on this boat was likely well over any safe capacity the boat could handle. Even though it might not be rated for a certain amount of people if it's yacht-rated, everything I can see online tells me that this vessel, based on weight capacities, is likely only rated safely for anywhere from 8 to 15 people, and the 23 people on board will be significantly over the amount of people this boat should probably be carrying. Our next story to make the boating news this week is going to bring us back down to Fort Lauderdale and take us several weeks back to the images we'll see here, which is the nearly 40-meter motor yacht Mirage being grounded right in front of the Bahia Mar Marina in Fort Lauderdale. According to local reports, the crew had just left the Bahia Mar Marina and was heading toward Port Everglades Inlet when all of a sudden the vessel wound up running aground on a sandbar that's in the turning basin in front of Bahia Mar. Crew quickly wound up calling a towing company, seen in the images here, to try and free the vessel up. But unfortunately, as we can see, this large yacht is listing on its side, meaning it is completely grounded, and unfortunately the tow company's efforts to try and free it were unsuccessful. According to local reports, the vessel actually wound up sitting here grounded in front of Bahia Mar for almost 8 hours until the tide came back up high enough for the crews to be able to get the vessel released from the sandbar. Thanks for watching, crew. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Boating News of the Week. If you ever see anything crazy happening on your waterways, be sure to hit us up at Broncos Guru on Facebook or Instagram and let us know, and you might see your stories over here, just like Lee Mann and Thomas Gaston did this week. And if you guys haven't already, go ahead and drop an anchor on the subscribe button here. If not, we're coming to steal your drain plug.